Today we are covering multiplying and dividing real numbers. Our goal for today is to multiply and divide whole numbers, integers, fractions, and decimals. We have two very important concepts that we need to cover for today, and I have written it as Vic number 1 so that way we don't have to write down very important concept every single time. Our first concept that we want to know is if two numbers have the same sign, the product or quotient is positive. So here's an example. If I take positive 3 times positive 2, I will get positive 6. Another example using a negative. Negative 5 times negative 1. Negative and negative will give me a positive, and that will give me positive 5. Our second concept, if two numbers have different signs, the product or quotient is negative. Let's go ahead and use a quotient in this one. If I take negative 10 and I divide that by 2, positive 2, because they are different, your answer will be a negative answer, negative 5. If the signs are reversed, you'll also have the same answer. Positive 10 divided by negative 2, you'll still get negative 5. Let's go ahead and do a couple of practice problems. I've broken down the problems into levels, the first level being the easiest ones. Normally level 1s are your whole numbers and your integers. Level 2, if you notice, you have fractions. So let's go ahead and work on the first one. So according to our very important concept, if you have different signs, a negative and a positive in this case, your answer will be a negative. So 3 times 11 is 33. A negative and a positive gives you a negative. Here we have a division question. 25 divided by negative 5, a positive divided by a negative will give you a negative answer. Here's negative 5. And here we have two numbers here that are both negatives. We have a parenthesis that indicates that it's a multiplication question. 7 times 4, we get 28. Because they're both negative, this answer remains positive 28. Okay, let's jump to a fraction question. Here we have a negative 3/4 multiplied. Again, your parentheses indicate that they are multiplying by a 1/2. Whenever you multiply fractions, you don't have to have the same denominators. You could, but you don't have to. 3 times 1, we're going to multiply our numerators first, and that'll give me 3 on the top. Then we'll multiply our denominators. 4 times 2, and that gives me 8. And then a negative and a positive fraction gives me a negative answer. Let's try this one. Notice that we have two different types of numbers. We have a integer right here, and we have an improper. They're both negative, so which means when we multiply them, because of the parentheses that's indicated, that it's going to be a multiplication question, and it's going to be a positive answer. So let's first of all change this so that way we can use it and manipulate better. So let's change this from negative 4 to negative 4 over 1. And that automatically creates it and makes it into a fraction. We're going to continue leaving the parentheses here. This will be negative 5 halves, or negative 5 over 2. And then now they're both fractions. We have a number on the bottom right here that we can multiply with denominator-wise. So we're going to go ahead and multiply it out. A negative 4 and a negative 5 gives me a positive 20. And a 1 times 2 gives me 2. And we can simplify down by dividing 20 divided by 2 because that is an actual division question. And that gives us 10. Alright, let's move on to level 3. Level 3 questions are similar, except now we're going to go ahead and do division. Here we have 3/10 divided by a negative 6/5. Now whenever that you are dividing, there's something special that you have to do, and it's really not special, it's just how you solve a division question. So we're going to start off with 3/10, and 3/10 is going to stay 3/10. The division question sign right here changes into a multiply. And then we're going to do something special here, which is called flipping or reciprocating. We're going to reciprocal the fraction right here. And that just makes it look like this. Negative 5 over 6. You're just flipping that fraction. And now, if you look at it, you've just now created a multiplication question of fractions again. And you're just going to multiply straight out. Since it is still a positive times a negative, your answer will be a negative. And then you would now have 15 on the top. 10 times 6 is 60 on the bottom. And you can simplify that. The number that you can simplify this with is, you can probably divide top and bottom by its GCF, which is 15. And that gives me negative 1/4. Okay, let's try this one. This one's a little bit harder because you have an improper fraction here, so we need to do something. Instead of just flipping the 5 and the 2, you actually have to change this number. We're going to first of all change this into 7/5. And how we did that is we took 1 times 5, added the top, and that gave us our 7, and then we kept it as the same denominator. So the whole number times the bottom, at the top, we got 7 over 5. So now we have what looked like the first one. So again, I'm going to leave negative 3/4, change that to a multiply. We're going to drop that down, but when we drop this down, don't forget, we've only just changed this into an improper, so we're going to flip it, because remember, we are changing from a division to a multiplication, so we're now flipping this, multiply numerator by numerator, negative 15. 4 times 7 is 28. And that's our answer. Alright, so let's go with the last one, which is a word problem. So we're going to take what we learned here and apply it to a word problem. So here we have a cyclist traveled on a straight road for 1 1/4 hours at 12 miles per hour. How many miles did he travel? Well, if you look at the question itself, he only went for about 1 hour. A little bit more than that. So if you look at the rate of speed that he's gone, he can go 12 miles per hour. So if he's gone for 1 hour, we know that he's gone 12 miles. However, he's gone a little bit more than that. And that's a part that we can go ahead and try to find out using the math that we know. So, because we know that he's traveled for 1 1/4 hours, we can take 1 1/4, and we're going to multiply that by 12. Now that's your improper fraction right here. That's your whole number right here. We're going to go ahead and change it so that way it makes it easier for us to multiply. So we're going to change this by taking 1 times the bottom, at the top, we now have 5/4, and we're going to multiply this by the fraction form of 12, which is 12 over 1. Now, we can cross-cancel and simplify that way, but let's just go ahead and just multiply straight through. That'll give me 60 over 4, and when you divide 60 by 4, you now have 15. Alright, so we've just gone through 1, 2, 3, and 4 levels of type of questions. There's one more thing I wanted you to look at, and that is the inverse property of multiplication. The inverse property of multiplication states that the product of a non-zero number, okay, which means not a zero, and its reciprocal is 1. So, if you take, let's go with 4, and 4 times 1/4. That'll give you 1. That's the inverse property of multiplication. Now, the other property of 0, let's go and talk about that. There's 3 of them. The first one, the product of 0 and any number is 0. So if you take 0 times any number, could be a fraction, a decimal, whole number, it'll still be 0. How about if you divide? Well, if you take the quotient of 0 and any number, it'll be 0. So if you take 0 divided by 6, it'll still be 0. 0 divided by 1/2, still 0. The only one that you have to remember is division by 0 is undefined. So, which means if you have 12 divided by 0, that's undefined. If you have how a fraction might be written, like 4 over 0, that is considered undefined. Now, if you were to flip it to make it 0 over 4, that is equal to 0. This is equal to 0 with the slash through it, undefined.